What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. It seems like there are a lot of teams in need of a starting caliber small forward this year. Who are some names that you think could be on the move and where they might be going? And on a larger scale, what does this need say about the state of the league in basketball? So it's not just small forwards. I look at it more as like there's a lot of guys that need more of like a perimeter two-way guy, and there are a lot of teams in need for like a low man two-way guy. So like the teams that need a more of a perimeter two-way guy are like the Lakers and the Bucks. I think the Mavs are another team that could be looking to make a smaller version of that type of deal, just as a guy that they could throw at the best perimeter players in the league. It's been a lot of Derrick Jones Jr. to start this year, and Derrick Jones Jr. is fine, but I think they could use another option there. The teams that are looking for more of a low man are like the Pacers or the Kings or the Thunder or the Warriors, right? Like these are teams that have good perimeter defenders, but they need help in interior physicality. Those are examples of those teams. The kind of perimeter guys that I look at this year that it could be available. Anybody from Brooklyn, as Brooklyn's falling apart. So look at Dorian Finney-Smith. Mikal Bridges is another guy I think that could be had potentially if the slide for Brooklyn continues. Alex Caruso from the Chicago Bulls is another guy. Javon Carter from the Chicago Bulls is another guy I'd be looking at. He's another guy that could be more affordable. There are a lot of those types of guys out there that I think teams will be going after. Alex Caruso's up over 45% from three this year, by the way. Pretty crazy. The low men that I look at, there's three big ones. Lauri Markkanen, Jeremy Grant, and Pascal Siakam. And they're all very different, right? Like Lauri Markkanen is this like outstanding offensive play finisher, right? Just a dead-eye shooter, a guy that can screen and roll the rim, a guy that can beat mismatches in the post. Like he's just really like imagine like a big giant forward version of Klay Thompson. He's like a tip of the spear kind of guy. I think he's really valuable. Jeremy Grant is more of like a scorer. He's a guy that like attacks mismatches in the post at all, takes a lot of like ISO pull up jump shots and stuff, but he's shooting the ball really well off the catch this year and has been really good and effective scoring out of the post. So I think he's more of a lesser version of Lauri Markkanen, for lack of a better term. But Jeremy Grant has had some impressive moments of perimeter defense this year. I still think he's got that in him if he's willing to buy into a role, and he's a guy that I'd be open to looking at, especially if you're a team that can't get into the bidding war for Lauri Markkanen. And then Pascal Siakam. This is a guy that I think both the Warriors and Lakers should be calling on, mainly just because I view him as a guy that I think is one of the best available players per value. He's, kind of gone under the radar in a lot of ways because he's not a very good shooter. But this is a guy who's a transcendent athlete. This is a guy that was so damn athletic that Draymond Green was struggling to handle him in the 2019 playoffs, right? This is a guy that, like, when he is asked to do a ton with the basketball, like he has the last couple of years, he can be somewhat underwhelming as a postseason player, right? But when he's in a position where he's playing alongside guys who do a lot of that stuff for him, and he can really focus his effort and energy to just inflicting his physicality on the game, he can be a game-changing athlete. And so even though teams like the Warriors and Lakers might not be interested in him from a shooting standpoint, I look at it as like, just for the price, for the caliber of player that you're getting back, you put him like a Wiggins, Siakam, Draymond front line, a Siakam, LeBron, Anthony Davis front line. Those are front lines that could like absolutely maul some of the bigger front lines in the league, even teams like Denver. And so I think that could be a real swing piece this year that teams should be looking out for. All right, next mailbag question. All right, I actually missed a small part there. What does this need say about the state of the league in basketball? Pretty quickly, I just think it's a clear indicator of the obvious fact that weak side responsibilities matter a lot, or I should say role player responsibilities matter a lot. There are a lot of teams this year that have stars that are playing well that are not necessarily succeeding to the extent that they should, right? Like we've seen this with Dame and Giannis. I know they're doing good in the regular season in terms of standings, but they've lost a lot of big games and struggled specifically because of something silly like who's guarding the other team's point guard? Like who's picking up in applying ball pressure during this game. Like that singular role not being filled has made it so that the Bucks look bad in big games. That's a real problem to keep an eye on, right? Like the Lakers, it's like LeBron James and Anthony Davis both playing way better than last year, both like legitimately playing at a top 10 level this season, and they're a 500 basketball team, in large part because they don't have a guy that can pick up at the point of attack and knock down a three at a high rate. Like it's a legitimate issue for them. I think it's these teams like Oklahoma City that have so much skill and they have a rim protector, or the Pacers as well, so much skill, have a rim protector, but not having a low man. And you're seeing just how fundamentally important a low man is in big time matchups. And I just think as the game has become more spread out and there's more talent on the floor, it's become more important than ever to have guys that are willing to do the dirty work on both ends of the floor. Next question. Do you honestly think the Suns will be healthy around playoff time, knowing the injury history of the three stars on their roster? So here's the thing. Let's just say for this, I would say there's a good chance that they're healthy and there's a good chance they're not, right? So let's just call it 50-50. If it's 50-50, we all know that if they get hurt, they're not a threat, but that could be said about every team in the league. I believe that if the Nuggets lost Aaron Gordon or KCP or Michael Porter Jr., they would go from being a top-tier championship contender to the lower tier. Like losing a player and kicking you down a tier is a reality for every single team, in my opinion, except for maybe Boston. Like maybe Boston could afford an injury to one of their guys, right? But outside of that, like no team really has that type of flexibility. And so when it really comes down to it, it's like, should we just write off the Suns all year and be like, screw it, they're going to be hurt? No, like we have to prepare for the potential, eventuality that they're healthy and what could happen if they are. And I think that's the purpose of the way that we should cover them, if that makes sense. A lot of Nuggets fans upset that I had them lower in my power rankings. I'll just pull one comment here. Nuggets ranked too low. They're 10 wins out of their last 12 games played. One loss they let slip away and should have won. The most recent was definitely an embarrassing performance, but they're nowhere near as low as 8. So a couple things. My power rankings are designed to be a vehicle with which I can honor or pay respect to teams playing good regular season basketball. That was one of the decisions we made early in the year. Like, I don't want my power rankings to be the same as my contender rankings. The Nuggets are number 1 in my contender rankings. There has not been a single moment this year, not even for a split second, not even during stretches when Jamal Murray was out and they looked bad. Like, I have not even for a second doubted or had any sort of change of heart as it pertains to Denver being number 1 on my contenders list. Like, I trust them more than everyone else, and it's not particularly close. And like, I'm a big believer in Denver. Right? But they're 9-11 against teams that are 500 or better this year. And in my power rankings list, the teams that are above just have more impressive wins. And I'm using that list, that specific list, for regular season kudos. And so that's the purpose of that list. And so Denver fans, like, them being 8 and in the power rankings more has to do with the fact that they've been a really good standings team. They're 15-0 against below 500 teams, which is what's carried them in the standings. But in the bigger games, by the way, mostly because of things like Jamal Murray being out and Aaron Gordon missing a big game against the Thunder, like there's no question that's why. Which is why I'm not worried about them for the postseason. But for my power rankings list, there are teams out there that have been more impressive in terms of winning big regular season games and just the totality of regular season accomplishments. That's why I have Denver at 8 at this point. It has nothing to do with what I see as their championship potential. Go look at the teams I have above them and look at them in big games. Look at their key signature wins this year. Most of the teams above them have a lot more in that specific department. Last question. I started tweaking my shooting form since I have a bad habit of shooting with way too high of an arc. How should I go about fixing it? How feasible is it to just lean into it? Love the show. Keep it up. So I have a philosophy with shooting form. And it's a philosophy I've gained from coaching kids. Because as you can imagine, when you coach kids, you coach a lot of kids that have bad shooting form. And it's really this simple to me. Like, there are a million different ways to shoot a basketball. And I think it's way less important to focus on the particulars of your release and more on little details. Like, how's your balance? Are you good at making sure you have a good wide base and going straight up and down all the time and getting good lift? Like, that's step one, particularly because most shots in basketball are on the move in some way, shape, or form. Even when you're spotting up, you might be relocating. You might have just played a lot of defense, and so you're tired. Legs and lift are a huge part of it. From there, the second bit of it is like any energy transfer is what I refer to it as. But energy transfer is how do you get from your feet through to the top of the shot in a way that has no wasted energy, that has no unnecessary movement, which then creates a muscle memory that is simple that you can replicate. If you can do that, if you're balanced and you have good energy transfer, meaning you have a good, routine that doesn't have wasted energy that you can reproduce every single time, you can be a good shooter even if you shoot with a ton of arc, even if you shoot with very little arc, even if you shoot with opposite thumb, even if you shoot with one hand. Even if you shoot without jumping super high, even if you jump while shooting, even if you shoot while jumping super high, that to me is way less important than do you have good lift? Are you doing the exact same thing every time? It's got to be replicable. When I shoot on the shooting machine at least twice a week. So I do a lot of different kinds of shooting drills. I do a lot of like one person, one ball, like movement shooting drills. That's where I do all my off the dribble and movement stuff. And the primary goal there is like, I'm trying to do game speed and like add a lot of complication to it, right? When I'm on the shooting machine, I just do standstill shooting. And when I'm on the shooting machine, I have this constant mentality. There are two shooting machines here. The machine that's throwing me the ball, and then me. I need to be a machine. How does the shooting machine get the ball to me in the same spot every single time? Because it's literally like a little catapult that's going like this with the same spring on the same hinge, throwing the ball to the same spot every single time, right? That's what I need to be as a shooter. I need to have a form that like looks the exact same every single time with very little wasted movement, and I need to look like a shooting machine. And if I do that, I'm going to be more consistent as a shooter. And so again, I wouldn't focus so much on the particulars of your form. Just make sure that you have good fluidity and energy transfer. Make sure you have good lift. Make sure you're doing the same thing every single time.